Good evening. I'd like to call the Winterville Town Council Annual Planning Meeting Agenda Part 2 to order. Today, invocation will be given by Councilman Johnny Moore along with the blessing, and after that, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I turn it over now to Mr. Johnny Moore, Councilman Moore.
Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all that you have done, the protection that you bestowed upon us during the adverse weather. We thank you so much for the ones that we had in place that you have sent to us to take care of us in a time of need. We just want to give you the glory and honor for all that you have done. I want to thank you so much for all our citizens. We didn't have that many calls that was out of the norm during this time. That means that everything was all well. We just want to give you glory for that. I want to thank you for this meeting. We ask you, Lord, to be in the midst. Therefore, that all things work together for good to them that love you, to them who are called according to his purpose. And I just want to give you thanks and glory. Thank you for this food that we're about to receive, for the nourishment of our body. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you. If we could please stand, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Councilwoman Hawkins.
Present.
Councilwoman Dr. Brandon Harrell.
Present.
Councilman Johnny Moy.
Present.
Councilwoman Lisa Smith.
Present.
Councilwoman Ms. Veronica Robinson.
Present.
And Mayor Hines, present. We all accounted for. Next up, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion made by Councilwoman Smith, second by Councilwoman Dr. Brandon Harrell for the approval of the motion. Is there any other questions? If none, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We're gonna get ready to take a 40-minute break for dinner, and we'll be right back. I said 40, but if y'all get
Okay.
quicker. I said 40, but you.
Okay. Okay. Surprised I never had 40
All right.
feet. God. Teachers are that hungry. I'm going to throw up now.
As slow as I eat.
Eyes ready.
Wait a minute, man, wait a minute.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's not me.
Oh. Call the meeting back to order. Okay. Okay, all right. We're back in session now, and next up is we're gonna have Miss Jessica Manning with our finance department, finance director, to talk to us about 25-26 budget updates. Ms. Manning.
So while Jessica's headed to the podium, we took a little different approach this year. This is more of the strategic part that we have historically done in our previous vision setting meetings, but I would usually do a separate PowerPoint from the budgetary PowerPoint, and I think what staff has done this year is combined them. So Anthony usually talks about a list of projects, and what we'll do is this is one PowerPoint, and we're sort of putting it all together and conversing about it all together. So this PowerPoint may be a little longer than what you're used to, but that's only because we've now basically combined both PowerPoints. So with that said, I'll turn it over.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, like Terry said, we'll go over the budget highlights and outlook, kind of go over where we stand right now with our revenues and expenditures, and then some factors for the upcoming year. And then at the end, Anthony will talk about some projects that we have coming up and our unfunded commitments and priorities. So we'll start with the revenues. So I'll go over the general fund, recreation, electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. So starting with our general fund, our revenues are on target for the current fiscal year. As of the end of January, we will have completed 58% of the year. Our revenues are currently at 61% of the total revenue budget, and our budgeted interfund transfers are accounting for 10.5% of our general fund revenues. Currently, our property tax revenue is at 99.5% of the budget. Our vehicle property tax is currently on target for what is expected for this time of year. Right now, we're averaging about $68,000 monthly, which is in line with where we were last year. Local option sales tax revenue is currently 53% of the estimated budgeted amount. Utility franchise taxes are also on target with relation to budget estimates, right now at 50%. Our general fund was balanced with a $1.8 million fund balance appropriation, and that's an increase of $1.5 million from last year. The general fund is also balanced with an electric fund contribution of $350,000. For our recreation fund, there's $81,000 used from retained earnings to balance the recreation fund budget. The recreation fund has collected 87% of budgeted revenues. Many of the program revenues are collected in the spring. 84% of recreation revenues are transferred from our general fund. For the electric fund, sales revenues are currently on target with expectations in the amount of $7,095,000. Our revenues are at 52%, with 50% of the year having been billed so far. $1.1 million from retained earnings was used to balance the electric fund budget. The water fund is also on target with water sales at 52% for the year so far. Our current sales are at $830,000 for the year. And the water fund used $620,000 of retained earnings to balance the budget. Sewer fund sales, we're also on target with those at $1.4 million in sales, and that's also 52% of the sales budgeted for the year. This fund was balanced with $201,000 from retained earnings. Stormwater billings, also on target at $274,000, and that's also 52% of the budget. And $43,000 from retained earnings was used to balance the stormwater fund. Moving on to our expenditures, we'll go through the same funds. For the general fund, at this point in the year, so far we've had 4 budget amendments. We can expect to have at least 2 more before the end of the year. In the general fund, the town has spent 59% of the funds that were appropriated, and we still have capital outlay purchases that need to be made. Recreation fund has spent 44% of the funds appropriated for the year. $642,000 of the $1.4 million budgeted has been spent so far, and capital spending for recreation this year is estimated to be around $186,000. For our electric fund, our purchase for resale line item is currently on target with $2,063,000 of the $4.7 million having been spent. This is 44% of the budget for the year. For our natural gas prices, so far they've been steady up until we did have a spike in the last 17 days, and that ranged from January 15th through February 2nd. And that will have a negative impact on this year's budget. Once we can get a clear understanding of how this impact will affect us, then we will report that back to council. And depending on the severity of the impact, we'll have to, may have to reinstate the energy rider for several months in order to recover those potential losses. The total fund expenditure is at 52% of the appropriation for the year. And the total electric fund budget is $10,142,000. For the water fund, the total expenditure is at 63% of the appropriation for the year, and that purchase for resale line item is at 48% of the budget, with $332,000 of the $700,000 having been spent so far. And the total water fund budget is $2.5 million. For the sewer fund's currently spent 71% of its annual appropriation. Our CMSD expense accounts for 38% of the annual sewer budget. And the total sewer fund budget is $3.3 million. The sewer fund began paying back a $260,000 loan from the water fund, and we started paying that back last year, so the sewer fund will pay back $52,000 for the next 4 years. For the stormwater fund, it's spent 74% of its annual appropriation, a little over $1 million. And the largest appropriations in the stormwater fund are contracted services for $109,000 and the AIA grant for $136,000. Talk a little bit now about our fund balance status. Our auditor talked about our fund balance available as a percentage of general fund expenditures as of 6/30/25, and that was 118%. Was down just a little bit from 2024 at 137%. The town did appropriate $1.8 million. It was up from $386,000, which was a $1.5 million increase from last year to balance the general fund budget this year. The unassigned fund balance is $12.4 million, or 59% of the general fund annual operating expense that was budgeted for the 25-26 budget year. Fund balance percentage presented for the general fund does include the recreation fund, and the recreation reserve has 289,000. Our power bill fund has a fund balance of 958,000. The electric fund has unrestricted retained earnings in the amount of $8,080,000, or 80% of the annual operating budget. The water fund has retained earnings in the amount of $1.4 million, or 56% of the annual operating budget. Our sewer fund has retained earnings in the amount of negative $178,000, which is negative 0.05% of the annual operating budget. And we do have 2020 sewer rehab capital project reimbursements that we haven't received yet. Let's putting that in the negative. The stormwater fund has retained earnings in the amount of $4.6 million, or 466% of the annual operating budget. Some factors that we can look at for next year: we do have one loan that's coming off the books in the 26-27 fiscal year, and that's in our general fund. That debt service amount was $88,000, and that was for the E1 ladder truck in the fire department. For next year, we'll have new debt service payments on the books for our vehicles and equipment that we've purchased. In the general fund, the principal and interest payment will be around $176,000. For the electric fund, $69,000. Water, $44,000. Stormwater, $59,000. And the sewer pump station rehab payment is $419,000. Our housing permits issued by the inspections department did decrease just a little bit. That number was at 70 for 2025, and last year it was 73. Our permits are expected to be steady in the next fiscal year with a possible increase in inventory. Right now, the unemployment rate for Greenville is 4.3%, which is up slightly from 3.9%. CPI for the last 12 months was 2.7%, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and last year it was 2.9%. Overall, economists are suggesting a relatively stable market for 2026 with some moderate growth and stable job markets. The Federal Reserve is anticipated to cut interest rates to around 3 to 3.5% by the end of 2026. They're predicting inflation to have a slow, moderate decline towards a 2.4 to 2.6% by the end of 2026. That rate could remain higher due to possible tariff impacts and the job labor market. They're predicting construction materials to experience moderate increases of around 2 to 4% compared to 2025, and tariffs could also impact this number as well. And then I'll let Anthony take over from here.
Thank you, Jessica. Moving on to project updates. It's always a good time when we get budget conversations to kind of talk about where we are with projects and where we are moving forward and how they relate to the budget process. As you know, we have a cemetery expansion project going on. Estimated cost is $315,800. That was budgeted in this year's budget at $100,000, so we're going to have a $215,000 shortfall there we'll have to make up. Once we get bids in, we'll know a little bit better about what that exact cost is going to look like. We expect to advertise for that and get bids in within the next, 4 weeks, roughly. The next project on the list is a downtown parking plan. The estimated site work for this is $495,000. The total budget that we included for this year is $500,000, but there's some things that does not include, such as a generator for town hall, new lighting in the downtown area, and the parking near the town square, and then a new sign for Town Hall, if we wanted to put an electronic sign there. So there's three major big ticket items there that we'll probably have to look at a little bit closer as we get closer to that project getting off the ground. Fire training facility, as some of you may have heard, we're in the running. I don't know if it's finalized completely yet, but Congressman Murphy's office has tried to obtain $750,000 in federal funding for the town of Winterville for a fire training facility, and so that project, once we get confirmation on the funding, we'll move forward. The location of that is already behind the town operations center, and some of that work has already started years ago. It's been years in the making, but this should kind of get us across the finish line. Public building mold remediation. All the public buildings in town have been serviced for repairs, and the project that has been completed. There's an ongoing assessment with HVAC and architects to ensure building systems are working properly to prevent these issues in the future. We want to make sure we have clean work environments for all our employees. Moving on, next we have the recreation department. We have an ADA compliance park renovation project. That project is in a preliminary design phase, and this is a grant-funded project up to $500,000. We also have a water fund, along with additional federal funding that was received from Congressman Murphy's office. Is a $1 million project for the water fund for water looping. This project will replace several small 2-inch lines in the heart of town, where we have need to put in basically 12-inch lines so that we have better fire flow and better water quality in that area. Sewer fund, we have the sewer pump station project going on. We're getting really close to starting the second station. We've started Chapman Street, Church Street. We'll be starting here by the end of the month, and we hope to have a substantial completion on this project by March 4th. As you may recall, in Jessica's presentation, there was a negative retained earnings. Basically, what happens in these big projects is this is like over an $8 million project, and so the town has to cash flow that. We have to pay it up front. We pay the contractor, and then we get reimbursed back from the state. So as of June 30th, we were in the process of getting reimbursed for a large sum of money. During that time, the state switched systems, so it was kind of bogged down about how long it took to get the funds back. But they've got the system up and running, and we're getting funds a little bit faster now, so we're not having to wait so long to get reimbursed. So March 4th is the anticipated substantial completion on that project. So unfunded commitments, we have in the electric fund, we have the Old Tar Road widening project. This again is a reimbursable project by NCDOT. This will be on your agenda Monday night for approval with the contract with NCDOT for the reimbursements. That is estimated to be a $1.4 million project, and we'll have to cash flow that as well, and we will also get reimbursements along the way while that project is undergoing. From a water standpoint, you have a Southbrook Waterline Improvement Project. Phase 1 is estimated at $93,000, and then Phase 2 is estimated at $83,000. So we'll look to improve the water system that's being installed in that subdivision. There's a cost share agreement that's slated on your agenda for Monday night as well for this project. And so we will look to increase the 8-inch line that runs through that project from Lori Ellis to Church Street, and we'll increase the size of the capacity of that line. We also have the Quail Trace regionalization improvements. This has already been approved by the council, but we will have to pay for the improvements once that project is complete. And we've had a kickoff meeting with the developer, and that project is underway. From a stormwater perspective, we have Noble Canal Phase 1. Currently, the town has $3.2 million set aside for the Noble Canal Railroad Street project. Phase 1 is basically going to include improvements on Tyson Street, The open part of Noble Canal behind the church on the west side of Mill Street, and then coming up Tyson Street and increasing capacity by installing a new drainage system under Tyson Street.
Anthony, is there a cost estimate on that phase one?
No, we are working with the preliminary design has been done, it's been submitted. So basically, everything for this project is going to have to run through CSX. We've currently submitted that design to CSX, and they are in a review process. Once we have that done, we will have some more information to include. Basically, they're saying they're just above 65% complete on the design. I will say the breakdown of the phases is based on when we can work in the area. So you always want to work, and Stormwater Cliff can speak to this better than I can, but you always want to work the furthest away and then work in, because you know you can make improvements here, but if you got a bottleneck closer toward the stream or creek you're trying to get it to, you're not really doing yourself any favors. You need to open up the area and work your way into the problem area. So working your way out in is always a strategy when you're working with stormwater. And so what we've done is the Tyson Street area will be done while school is in session, and then we'll have to wait until school is out to do the Railroad Street portion of the project. We also have some NCDOT betterments associated with the Old Tower Road widening project. That included the black coated signal poles and signage for the street lights and signalization. Once the new signals are installed with the Old Toll Road widening project, and we shouldn't think we will have 4 new signalized intersections. Unfunded high priorities, and these are things that the council has discussed in the past that we really haven't gotten to a point where we have a concrete number or concrete plan, but these are on the table and they're coming quick. Starting in the general fund, we have public buildings. Our public buildings are aging. None of the buildings are new anymore, although they really do look nice. In most instances, we're having a lot of system problems. And so condition assessment on the buildings and setting up a capital improvement plan for those buildings is a high priority. Obviously, we have streets and sidewalks projects, emergency medical services. It was a hot topic last year this time. We have some aging fire apparatus that's going to have to be replaced at some point in the near future. From recreation, we have the multi-purpose facility. That update was provided at the last budget workshop, so y'all were given a package from that from Recreation Director, and then ongoing operation and maintenance of that facility. From a electric, water, sewer standpoint, from our utilities, AMI metering technology is coming pretty quick. We actually had a meeting scheduled for this week, but because of the inclement weather, we had to cancel. People were traveling in. So that item is converting our metering system that we use right now to a more advanced system that will allow us to read meters from in the office and reduce the amount of trucks we have to roll to a resident's home. Water tower design. Water tower is a big issue as the town grows. Hope to plan to use some of the money from Congressman Murphy's, the $1 million, to get the design part done, along with those water looping projects. So that would be like the first component of using that $1 million. Once that's done, then we'll have to look at how to fund the construction of the water tower. From a sewer standpoint, we've got the $8.4 million sewer rehab project that's going on right now. The debt service on that, as Jessica pointed out, was like $419,000 a year, and that's going to equate to a rate increase for each resident of $8.20 to cover that debt service payment. We're also going to have regionalization projects coming up as we look at how the town's going to grow in the future and getting ahead of the the growth instead of staying behind it and ending up with so many pump stations. And then always I&I, that's a critical component. Inflow and infiltration is what I&I stands for, and that's basically when the sewer system gets inundated with water from the ground, whether it be from rain or just groundwater itself, and that also always ends up getting treated, even though it's water from the ground. So it's not the same as treating sewer, and so but it drives your cost up, and the plant has to have capacity to handle it. From a stormwater perspective, we hope to have a presentation for y'all in March on our CIP. We were trying to get it in front of the Stormwater Advisory Committee, but our last meeting we didn't have a quorum for the last meeting, so we weren't able to present it to them. But in the effort to move forward with our stormwater capital improvements program, we're hoping to bring that to you in March. And so that's a quick summary of some of the projects we have going on and trying to plan for at the moment. Stand by for any questions.
It's something I want to ask. On the unfunded high priority things, I'm just asking this question to both chiefs, fire chief and police chief. I was a part of their training where they did over at the church. The bags, which is so important. How much were they? $350 a piece. And how many would you need? Because
Can we talk about what they're for?
yeah,
Okay.
that's. I wanted him to explain what they're
Okay.
for. Right. Okay. Oh, okay, all right. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure, because when I was out there watching it, y'all were saying that you need them to make sure that when you're going into these things. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Then my next question is for.
Can I ask him?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Chief, is that something the association's trying to work on? I got you.
All right.
Right.
Do I need to help y'all at the county level to speak on that? Okay, all right, I'll help with that. Okay, all right. Next thing is for Jessica. I want to just ask this question. With maybe in the future or whatever, having hotels or whatever, do we have to do anything as far as occupancy taxes? Do we have to approach the General Assembly for that, or is it, how would that work?
But the answer is yes. There's a process that we'd have to go through. Obviously, council would have to approve it first, and then there's a process to enact those types of things.
Okay, because that could generate some more revenue, right? There'll be another stream of revenue coming in. Okay.
I do have a question. Anthony, if you could go back and explain a little bit further about the unfunded high priority project for the sewer, regarding the sewer pump station rehab project, and then the rate increase of $8.20 needed to cover the debt service costs. Is there a projected timeline of when that would happen, and also, for residents to get a notice before all of this happens? Thank you.
So that project is supposed to be completed in March. Completion in March. However, the first debt service payment will be the following year.
Okay.
So we'll have, I think it's May of 27. It will be in our next budget. But we need to get it on time. Following year. Ultimately, the $8.20. We can start advertising that in anytime, I mean, I probably recommend probably 6 months.
Okay.
We've already committed to it. Go longer with it. But the cost of the project, started out at about $4 million. By the time everything got put in place, and as well as the inflation of the construction, this project was designed back in COVID. So after COVID, is when the construction also quickly that project became $8 million project. But our pump stations were at capacity, especially Chapman. We were running risk of spills every time we had rain. And we also were living ourselves on the road.
Thank you.
I do have a few questions. This will be directed to Assistant Town Manager Bowers as well as Ms. Manning. My first question is, with the prospective grant that was awarded that we are waiting for, is there a timetable for us awaiting it? I heard approval and awaiting. Was it approved, and if so, what is the timetable? And my second part is, the expenses, on the last meeting, there was an appropriation for close to $1.2 million. This grant would have covered some of those costs. How will we reappropriate those monies? That's my first question.
Sure. So start off with at the federal level, we've had to wait for. I heard on the news this morning that the Senate passed the appropriations bill. So we feel like it's a sure thing at this point. Don't really count the tickets for the hatch, but we're now waiting, 100% confirmation on any kind of paperwork associated with it from Congressman Markey's office. And so the way we apply for funding for these projects, there is a breakup. They're broken into different categories. At the federal level, they have different pots of funds. So one example, like the $1 million for the water project, water leaking, community enhancement. Whereas something along the lines of like $750,000 for fire training facility, that one was under Homeland Security. So the funding comes from different categories. So when we applied under three different categories. We had some preliminary receipts of another grant of $510,000 for radio. That one hasn't been 100% assured yet, and so that one is still in the works. We feel pretty confident that we get that as well. So overall, we're looking at $2.25 million that we were able to get through our representatives this year. We're really excited about it. So we work hard to do that. But what I want to be clear about is the funds for each group is basically in the state department. And so $1 million for water could be used for radio, or it could be used for the fire training facility. It has to be used for water.
I'm going to answer some of part of yours. I actually reached out to Congressman Murphy's office today because I felt like if I could get an answer for everybody tonight, but he was in Raleigh today, and I left a message with his secretary, and he was supposed to reach back out to me. So as soon as he let me know, I will let the council know as far as the appropriation and everything. Okay.
I'm saying we're right at the finish line. We're just waiting for official word and document.
Okay. So if
I'm
I,
s-
I'm not
Go
Assistant Town Manager Bowers or Miss Manning, but I would say there's $1 million for water, 750 for the fire training facility, and then if we're lucky, we're gonna get the $500,000 for radios. So that would offset the 1.2 million we just,
So-
That was originally to be funded with a loan.
Okay, so that is my question. That's my question. So the loan that was in process is no longer needed while we're anticipating the funds, and we're greatly anticipating it because it passed. So we no longer need that loan, am I correct, or how does that work?
Still need loan for basically half of it.
a little more than that, yeah.
So will we get a figure on what we need and for what? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because there was an appropriation for those specific categories, and like you explained, the grants will go to those specific categories outside of the radios, which is sort of like in limbo because that is not a definitive. So outside of those expenses and whatever is left, then would we get or have to come back? Or is this whatever the appropriation that was passed, is that set in stone? Or will that need to be revisited?
We will amend that, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, that's my question.
The budget will still be $1.2 million, rounding off here. It'll be $1.2 million. We'll basically edit the appropriation and say that proceeds, will, $500,000 will come from grant, remaining $700,000 will come
What?
from loan proceeds.
Okay. If I have any extended questions on that, because the crux of the matter of what I'm asking is, if those monies, that totality of the estimated monies are not going to be used, right? And it's going to be amended, what will happen with the monies that we're using? What is that going to be used for? And the monies that are not going to be used, where is that going back into the general fund? And how can we reappropriate that to other departments or other priority needs? That's my question.
Well, originally 100% funded with a loan. So there was no, when we got the grant, you're not really having extra money to put somewhere else. You're basically
Just the amount, right. Because that loan has not been fully,
That's a whole long process.
Yeah.
We'll have to go before the local government commission.
Right.
And get all that.
So thank you. So the answer is the loan will be reduced once it's amended. Thank you. I do have another question. When we talk about the unfunded high priorities, public buildings, streets and sidewalk projects, emergency medical services, fire apparatuses. These are indeed high priorities. What can we do with, or if we're not utilizing those funds and was going to reduce them, how can we then send those to said departments such as the fire department? We know there's natural and man-made occurrences. How do we ensure that we utilize monies to make sure our fire and emergency personnel services have what they need? Not have to get it, but have what they need. Because we just experienced a situation. So that is my question. How can we then ensure that we don't have to get ready, but we are ready, but they have what they need? That is my question.
we're gonna have to find ways to increase our revenues. As you can see, we've got way many more priorities than we actually have money to pay for it. We took $1.8 million of fund balance this year to balance the general fund. So that means, in essence, the general fund is supposed to pay for itself we're already, if we don't add anything else on, $1.8 million in the hole, just to pay for the equipment we purchased, just the personnel that we approved in the budget. So if you take all of these plus the debt service that's already coming on board, we've got to find additional revenues depending on the fund that these needs come from. We've got to find additional revenue to pay for those things. And so that is an ever-present challenge for the town, as it is for any town, during the budgetary process. So how do we increase revenues? Well, obviously, the straightforward answer, and I'm not suggesting this is just a fact, is to look at our sources of revenue, which would be our taxes. State shared revenues, we don't really have any control over those. They're set in how we're funded by the state, and our user fees, our rates. So it is, and Anthony, Jessica, jump in, don't let me monopolize the conversation, but that is the challenge that we as staff go through every single year, because we've been needing personnel. There's always equipment that's going to need to be updated and replaced, and to try to make that so that we can stay fiscally sound, but get the things we need. That's definitely a challenge.
Thank you, and I hear you, and I understand that we are, had to utilize money to balance the budget. I hear you, and I hope this is a safe enough space during a planning meeting to extend this conversation. So again, I'm going back. If there was money set alone, right, a vote on a loan for reappropriation or appropriation of funding that was already set, and if some monies are not needed, and there's a priority for natural and man-made being ready for that, why would we not utilize that in that manner? Or, yes, that's my question.
If I could interject, income, and pretty much this goes for every department. Each one of those departments has very unique, specialized equipment that is simple. Every department's going to have a bucket for it. All the works are going to have, all types of equipment to maintain backhoe. Fire department's going to have, aerial devices. Each department has a unique set of circumstances, and then each one of them have a unique set of funding mechanisms that help control it. The general fund hasn't been uncommon for us. We identified a need that is expensive in one of these larger apparatus to borrow funds to play with. Like you may have noticed in Jessica's presentation tonight, the last debt service payment's coming off the so that was $88,000 a year. So it's not uncommon for us to finance larger scale purchases for the department. It's a matter of assessing each department and taking the budget request that the department and then applying it to the system as a whole.
So I think the other side of that coin is you're exactly right. Then whatever debt service payments come out of the loans that we procure and get, that's what we have to make sure we can cover with the monies that we bring in. So in the situation that we're just talking about, if I may use the radios, certainly the debt service payment off a $700,000 loan would be less than a $1.2 million loan. So that would be great, because that's less money we have to find to make that debt service payment. But you're right. I mean, it's a challenge to make sure that we get the departments what they need so that we can continue to do the good job that they do, staff does on a routine basis and in the emergency situations. But again, it's that balance of trying to make sure that if we take out loans to buy additional equipment, that we can make the debt service payment, and then we'll get back to staff and increasing staff. You can't, unfortunately, take a loan out to pay salaries, so then we have to make sure we've got the proper revenues to annually pay for those salaries and benefits. So that's not a definitive answer, but it's certainly, I wouldn't think that there's one solid answer for how we do this.
Thank you for aiming to explain. I still just clear cut feel like if a loan was already on the table, already approved, and monies from that loan is not going to be used, how can that then be reappropriated or directed to what is needed most? I don't know, and all the particulars and intricacies, I'm just thinking, emergency, lives, how can we make this a, not high, but a top priority?
So just, are you referring to the $1.2 million
Yes, ma'am.
loan? Okay, so that loan has not happened. So there's no money on the table. Those dollars don't exist yet, because there's a whole process that Anthony talked about that you have to go through before you can ever sign off on the dotted line to actually get the check.
Thank you. It was approved, though.
It was
correct?
approved by council, and the idea is staff would start that process. But then we got word that hopefully we're gonna get $500,000 and some change. So then the process would only include the need for a $700,000 loan, and I'm rounding numbers as opposed to a 1.2. So since they aren't actual dollars right today, there'd be no additional dollars to reappropriate, if that makes sense.
I'm still processing, but thank you.
Sure.
Town Manager Parker.
Yes.
Real quick, and just to Councilwoman Hawkins' point, could you explain, I mean, we have a healthy unassigned fund balance.
Sure.
I mean, it's at 59%. So with the emergencies, because this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is like reserve, this is for flexible, I hate to say flexible spending, but it's for reserve. So if there is some sort of emergency, as she is speaking about, and, the loan ordeal is off the table, with our healthy fund balance of, around 12 million, we should be able to appropriate some of that to, if a, emergency comes about. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a lot of rumor going around that we've got $32 million in the bank ready to spend. That's not a true statement. So if you're hearing that, let me clarify that right now.
I've never heard that. I was just reading
Okay, no,
here,
I'm
and I
just
wanted to
saying,
help.
yes.
Yes.
It's been a big rumor, and since we're streaming, I wanted to make sure that we got that out for everybody who's listening. So yes, you can use your, what we'll call rainy day fund savings account. However, obviously, and Ms. Robertson, she and I, it's the running joke for 16 and a half years. You want to use those dollars sparingly, and you certainly can't use them for recurring costs.
Of course.
So yes, if there was something that we needed to purchase for an emergency, then we would come to council and we would request those dollars.
I am highly recommending that we look at our emergency department, our fire department, and not seeking to utilize those funds sparingly, but in proactive measures to get what is needed ahead of time, not when needed, not as needed, because lives and the well-being of lives should not be as needed or a rainy day or sparingly. And this is something that I am highly advocating for, in addition to monies toward a community center. But when I think about lives and natural and man-made disasters, I'm simply saying we're having a planning meeting.
Sure.
That we should really consider investing in our emergency fire, our fire departments, our people that are saving lives and coming to everyone's rescue. It shouldn't be, they shouldn't, have to get the bottom end. I'm not saying they said that to me. I am interpreting sparingly or rainy day. When I knew that we received the grant funds, my immediate mind was, how can we reappropriate? But now hearing that we can't reappropriate and learning that there is monies set to the side, what are we holding on to that for? If there is, we're living in a day and time where we need to be proactive and ready, not having to get ready. That is what I am highly recommending as we plan forward.
And I think we're on the same side of this team on that issue.
Sure.
I think we as staff do that on a regular basis. One of the things that, and I'm not sure, you do mention fire, but there are, I include all of these departments sitting here because they all have a point in the cog of the wheel, they're each a cog in the wheel of emergency services. And they all have a role to play during an emergency. So I would say that I think we as a management team do a really good job of making sure that emergency services have what they need. I mean, I think fire speaks for itself. We wouldn't get the ratings we do when they come in and inspect, the state comes in and inspect us, if they didn't do a really good job and have what they need. Having said that, I think the fire department would tell you, and I'm picking on the fire department, jump in, that they need people. And I think that's what they've asked for in the past, as many other departments have. And I think that that doesn't mean that they won't need a newer fire truck here in the near future. Certainly, we need to replace our equipment and make sure it's in good working order. We have emergency services and EMS, and the discussion about whether we're going to take that over. If we take that over and it becomes a department of the town, that is a huge expense, and that is a completely additional set of dollars that we're going to have, and they are right alongside fire and police when it comes to responding in emergency services. All of this to say that, yes, we could spend some of our fund balance, but again, part of the emergency response is to ensuring that we have money in the bank, that if a disaster comes along and we don't have any money coming in because things have come to a stop, that we have money to continue to offer these services for X amount of time to the citizens so that we can continue to get through whatever the emergency is.
Town Manager Parker, I am not asking that every dime be spent.
I
And
understand.
as town council and overseeing different departments, I'm giving my voice in what I believe would be the betterment for the community. While I know there are different departments and they work hand in hand, I am talking about things that are needed. And have you, recently surveyed and seen this, what is needed and what can be out of that list can be prioritized and purchased, not the entire fund, but some key things. And I feel like I do have a voice in sharing that. I know management and department heads, I know y'all do this day to day, but in my role, I am speaking not only for the departments, but I'm speaking for the citizens. And that is why I'm asking that be made a high priority. That wasn't the only question that I had in the budget. And when a packet this big in a presentation this vast is presented, you're gonna have questions. This is nothing that we just run through and, so that was my question on that. And, I know we went back and forth, but these are valid, questions.
If I may, going back and forth is not an issue for me. I'm happy to do that because if it helps to those listening and to those in this room, if it helps a greater understanding of what's important and moving forward, I will always be happy to do that.
And I thank you for that. I just want to make it clear that I'm not trying to extend this conversation, but it is very important to me.
Well, I think, yeah, I would agree.
That's good. It's just very important to me. I'm speaking for myself, being that we just had a snow event. We need things in place. And I'm highly recommending that as a follow-up, some of those things are, you know, I know you said it's different departments, but emergency, get there now, save lives, elderly, disabled, people who cannot get out and get to where they need to go in an emergent situation. That is what I would like to see, and so that is why I'm asking, because this was presented, and if monies are available, I really feel like they need to be targeted in those emergent situations to those departments.
And if you have, as with any board member, specific ideas of what you think should be purchased, please share, because I mean, that's always helpful.
I'll do it by tomorrow.
Okay.
Sure will.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing when we talk about use of fund balance. The town does have a policy in place. So
Yes,
25%,
thank you.
we have a minimum of 25% that we have to maintain. The town adopted this policy many, many years ago, shortly after kind of being in some financial trouble.
Right.
Roughly. And so the town adopted this policy to make sure that we have sufficient fund balance. So keep in mind, things do happen, those emergencies do happen, and you know, typically we think about hurricanes in North Carolina. Well, COVID was a strain.
Absolutely.
And if we didn't have good fund balances, being able to pay employees, being able to keep doors open, being able to find ways to be nimble in an emergency situation, and having that cash in hand really assisted the town to be able to handle that environment. So
Absolutely.
it's good to have. You probably do get some heat for having a high fund balance, and I'm not debating whether or not it's too high or too low. I'm just saying 25 is our minimum that's been established by the council, as well as just keep in mind we want to remain healthy so when emergencies happen, you have the cash flow to keep it all safe.
Absolutely, that's very understandable. I know other council persons may say something. Do we want to do round robin? Do you want to go to somebody else and come back to me? Because I have a few questions. And so when we think about the sewer and the projected increase in 2027 of $8.20, and this is to cover the cost of the rehab project, do we not factor in the population growth, right? We're having a population growth. And is this not, you know, any effects on our sewer with population growth? Now, I'm not an expert in sewer. That's not my, you know, trade. But how do we, in planning, discuss infrastructure alignment for population growth? As we know, we have people who have their eye targeted on Winterville as a great place to live. When developers come in, how do we, as a governance in the town, ask for incentives or a variety of ways where we can align infrastructure, where we can use monies, or I don't know how, repurpose monies to help with infrastructure. Point being, again, going back to the storm, with the amount of people traveling before roads were paved, that wasn't like that 5 or 10 years ago. You know, so as we're getting an increase of at least 100 people per year or more, how do we, where's the plans for that when we're thinking about that and when we're thinking about the increase? That was just my question. It doesn't have to be answered now, but that is my question when we're planning. And I think it's a valid question that the citizens too also want to know.
That's absolutely a valid point. I can speak to this one. From experience, we had our Church Street pump station was built around 2000, and we had to borrow the money from USDA through So, without that sewer lift station, the town would never been able to grow in the south portion. We didn't have sewer infrastructure there. With these loans for this, you're gonna have continued growth. I mean, you've got South Brook subdivision, you've got 600 homes built in it. What you'll see is, what we did in that situation, we reevaluated on a regular basis where we are, and we were able to pay that loan off instead of 40 years, we paid it off in 20 years. And that we stabilized the rates back then. So basically, it's a rate stabilization process that you go through, to analyze and review these loans and look at your revenues and assess who you get out from under that debt, the better off the town can be.
Yes, sir. So, and I hear you in talking about making, you know, payments more concise and being paid off sooner. I'm speaking of infrastructure. I'm speaking of flow of water. I'm speaking of transmitters going out. I'm speaking of, you know, a lot of electric being used. That is what I'm speaking of. The more people, right, more power is used. That is what I'm speaking of in planning. How do we plan forward proactively for that? And we don't have to answer tonight, but this needs to be on the surface in planning, because by the time we sit here next year, we're going to have hundreds and hundreds of more people.
Anthony, I'm glad you mentioned that, Councilwoman Hawkins. Would you talk about the discussion on the growth rate that we had? In other words, the anticipated growth rate, maybe it was off the tax. I forget exactly where you got that. Not to put you on the spot,
Yes,
sorry.
we looked at some preliminary numbers from the county tax office, and they didn't show the expected increase of revenue that we were. I don't know if that was due to change in valuation after the reval, things coming down, getting reassessed. I don't know if that's a result of prices coming down in the market. I'm not really sure why it kind of leveled off this year, but it looks like we're not going to have, based on the preliminary numbers we got, a dramatic increase in tax revenue based on tax base. So when it comes to growth in general and how we plan for that, we've gone through and we're doing it. I think each department's doing a capital improvement program. If we haven't done it, we're in the process of doing it. We have somebody under contract to work on it for us. So these capital improvement programs are broken down to analyze each project that comes into it. I think the most recent one we adopted was our water capital improvement program. And so the council will present these to the council will approve them. So they'll be ranked in priority based on need and cost and how we feel like where we were growing and how that's going to affect what infrastructure is needed. So these plans are always evolving. They're always, once they're established, we keep updating them on a regular basis. So we'll bring back to you, like I said, we'll bring the stormwater back to you next month. That'll be the first time that's been done since we've been here. So that's something staff's working on. So we're trying to get these plans in place and making sure that the town is prepared. And I'll say this too, we wouldn't have been able to get some of this funding if we didn't have these plans in place. When it comes to Congressman Murphy, working with his office, we were able to give him specific details on how we were going to use the funds. It's critical that we had a strategy, a plan in place, because it made it easy when the mayor went and talked to him. I heard him say several times that we didn't have the documentation, and we stood out.
Sorry.
Yeah, and we've been working on these, we started in 21, and this is how long it's taken to get what we at. So, I mean, it's always a work in progress, and, and Anthony and the rest of the staff, I had it all together. So when I did go, and I was able just to go present it to them like this, where I'm in the room with other municipalities, and he's asking them, what do you need? And nobody could hand them anything. We could hand him something so he could physically see what we needed, you know, so that's the good thing about it. And like I said, it started in 21, and then we're right here at 26. So it's a process, and trying to find the money, and also to get into what y'all was asking about earlier, having the fund, the rainy day fund. If you've been following the federal side of it, we know that FEMA is going by the wayside, you know, and pretty much you got to be able to support yourself, because whereas we used to rely on FEMA to give that money back to us, you know, it may not be there. And if we don't have something to put there, then, you know, we can be stuck. So it's very important not to utilize everything, because just like you said, just snowstorm, just using that right there. If we had to call in somebody else to help us, that money's got to be paid. As a contractor, got to be paid. So that's where we will look to FEMA to reimburse us. That's how can we do the emergency declaration. And so that's why we can't, you know, the old saying, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So we got to be careful on that. But you're making some good points, some of them saying.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate your explanation. I'm going to move on. And like we did say, there would be a 25% cushion, right? And I know we're not putting all our eggs in a basket, but we at least want some eggs, right? We don't want all the eggs broke or fried. So we understand that. And then just going back to the plans that are being put in place to support the growing infrastructure. If we could be presented with some sort of concrete, comprehensive plan, and like you said, the stormwater will be presented, and the public is seeing this in place. I know the mayor says since 2021, I just a comprehensive plan in place to align with infrastructure, to align with energies being used, that is very reassuring to those who even still anticipate coming to Winterville. But if it's not reassuring, it's going to discourage people. So, and I do appreciate that. And then my last question is with regards to, we talked about a multi-purpose center. We talked about, the multi-purpose center. We have this packet. What are we gonna do with it? We have McGill and Associates looking and stuff like this going on for a long time. When is our next move? And I know monies were set aside. It might be a drop in a bucket compared to what's needed, but we need to know or have something concretely for us to say, this is what happened, because we have I keep saying we're talking about it, but we need some sort of action. And I know you're gonna go back to the budget is in deficit. What do we need to do? Do we need to do a loan? I mean, get in more debt, do something. Why is that important? We have a growing community with youth, with elderly, with opportunities to gather and to do things. We had a plan or architectural layout of what that looks like. With a growing community, we need something. We can't use the community room or the depot to house events and to do things. So in planning, I think this is the appropriate time to speak of it. So that is why I'm speaking of it. What are we doing with this? This was given to us. What are we doing?
So the next step is to set a date for a workshop, and that workshop we can get into, I'll call it the weeds, or the beginning of the weeds on this project, that there are some things that staff needs council to decide on, such as, I have heard some of you say that you would like additional meetings, charrettes, et cetera, with the public. And so, obviously, we're open to that and happy to get those scheduled. But I think Diane and I need to know how many of those meetings would council like. All those things need to happen before McGill's ready to come back in and they're ready to work with council. But I have said, hold on, because there's a few things we need to talk about internally before we bring them back in. So keep your packet, because certainly we're going to get in those weeds in this workshop. And it's not going to be the only workshop, but it's certainly an initial workshop to get some next steps solidified so that we know how much more outreach to the public council wants us to take and to have, that kind of thing. And then we'll get back on these concepts to decide, you all, yay or nays, what's being presented.
I'll happily have mine by the time we have our town council meeting, 3 prospective dates. And then when the other council members put theirs together, we can come to a consensus. But for me, the sooner the better.
So I understood from last week, and by the way, I apologize, because I told you all I'd get you a summary of what happened last week. Needless to say, the storm took us over, so I will have a recap for everybody. But I understood from last week's meeting that Saturdays would probably work better.
Friday, Saturday.
So I'll reach out with some Saturday dates to have this workshop, if that is what works with everybody.
For me.
And before I say anything, you have something, Johnny?
Yes, I just want to say about, speak of the spike that we have for the last 17 days from January the 15th to the 2nd. It's going to be a negative impact on this year's budget. And where is those funds going to come from?
I'm sorry.
And those are the things that we have to consider.
I'm standing with you
It
there.
is gonna be a substantial impact. It's gonna be a little bit different than the last fight we had where it broke out from month to month. Some of y'all may recall the last time we had that was when the Russia-Ukraine war started in 2022. That was a situation where natural gas prices went through the roof and stayed there for a really long time. Probably shouldn't say a number, but I recall it affecting the electric fund budget to the point of right at $2 million. And so we had to implement the rider on our rate schedule. And so we did that to recoup some of that money to the rate payers. And so basically pass that along. As you can see, the electric fund is not healthy as a general fund when it comes to fund balance.
Fund budget, 10,000.
But I believe the annual budget for purchase for resale is around $4 million. I'll put it in, I have some general ideas. The electric fund balance, unrestricted fund balance is at 80%.
Yeah.
So we could see one bill for this 1 month be over $1 million, more than what we budgeted. So it is a significant hit to the town. How the town went the energy rider back into effect over several months and try to get that money loss back over time. And get some of that from the fund balance, whatever the council is comfortable with. What we do need to do, what decisions to make, exactly what that number is. I do feel comfortable in that Monday before last, natural gas prices went to $136 per MMBtu. And so, typically, we pay $3.50 per MMBtu. It was only there for one day, but.
Thank
that just-
God.
That just tells you, the northeast is getting hit, and the Mid is getting hit, natural gas prices went to the roof. So, we range on average anywhere from $3.50 to $5. Based on some of the data I was looking at, that 17-day period, we had some days that were in the range. So it's all gonna come down to how much consumption we have during that. So it's a process, there's some time involved, have concrete answers.
Anybody else?
I do.
Ms. Smith?
I'm always, okay. There's always a great deal of discussion about the fund balance, and yes, we have a healthy fund balance, and I believe that is a blessing. But also, as we have this conversation, as I sit here and listen, this year we pulled 1.9 million from the fund balance to balance our budget. Last year it was 1.5 million. That's 3.4 right there. We're having this discussion about these gas prices and the hit that we're gonna take, and looking at how we're gonna make this up, and then knowing that the fund balance is there, should there be a huge disaster, we have to be able, and assuming we have no income, continue to function. But every time we whittle 1.9, 1.5, 1 point this from the fund balance, eventually it's malnourished. And I just want us to be very careful. Again, it's healthy, and sometimes we get flack for being healthy. But at the same time, we are in a pretty good position, probably better than, I would say, maybe any other municipality in our area.
We are. Ms. Robinson?
Some of the questions that I have, I think would be for clarification for citizens. We talked about the energy rider. Would you explain that a little bit better for us, please?
Historically, we've had a rate structure that would establish while rates are high, while natural gas prices are high, a way to recoup some of the losses associated with costs that go above and beyond what we anticipated when we wrote the budget. And so that energy rider is based on the amount of energy used. It's like a standard, kilowatt hour is how we build electricity. It's still based on that. It's just not part of your normal rate schedule. You have a fixed rate for base fee, which they, the base rate also for the electric department, off of my head. Just say it's $25, and then you have a per kilowatt charge after that. This is just a per kilowatt charge that is at a different rate. And it's typically used to kind of recoup some of these high energy kind of ones.
Now, we've talked about energy, electricity, sewer, and we've talked about water. It's my understanding that these are enterprise funds, and that the amount of money we charge our citizens should cover the cost of them. But right now, at this point, we most definitely are not covering the cost of our sewer. Now, we are talking about it might be a rate increase that we may have of $8.20 to make it so that the cost is being covered. What is the total cost for sewer in Winterville? If we were to raise it, the $8.20.
The $8.20 is only to cover the additional debt.
Just for that project.
Yes, but it would be the fee would be added to what we already pay. So the fee would be what?
Well, it's gonna depend on how much consumption.
Oh, I mean,
Each
that's right.
household, right.
I know, okay, but the base rate, I think it's like $20, isn't it?
I don't-
Sewer costs about $20.
I don't know the base rate off the top of my head.
Okay, I think it is, but I'm not sure.
Cliff, let's get you a mic. I know it's hard to believe you need it, but I want to make sure folks can hear you.
What I was saying was, when we were discussing farm state, it's very important we need to keep that here, so, yes, it wasn't a valuable process for the development, but that revenue we get forever. And now we're talking to them about being mindful of generating funds for schools and all that stuff. Well, it's very important we have it here for, we always want to keep it here for, put that out and move forward. These questions have already come up with me, about the keep shooting for the area. More council to keep that moving forward. That is money that we can use already very, very right.
Well, and to follow up on Cliff's point, I think we use fund balance retained earnings. We use that, those phrases interchangeably in our enterprise funds, but we balanced each fund, almost all of them, with some contribution from fund balance or retained earnings. So that means most of our funds are not paying for themselves,
And they should be.
and they should
It
be.
should be.
Even general funds should be,
Mhm.
even though that's not an enterprise fund.
Mhm.
A sewer fund base rate is $41.
So that's without the $8.
Right.
Also, they was talking about this project, water looping project. And, we know that there's this, an area, a big lot on Knox Street, that there's some water, some kind of problems with that, am I correct, Fire Chief? Now, will this water looping project improve that area? Because I really think that, you know, I really feel bad about our town seeming to abandon a great big lot right in the middle of town. You know, right there by the project.
I do.
And then it's, several houses on each side of it, there's houses all around it. But this one piece of land is just not fit for, I guess, I'm not gonna say it's not fit for development, but it has not been developed because of,
Yes.
yes. And I feel like the reason it hasn't been developed is because of whatever problems, whether it's water flow or whatever.
I'm sure, I think water's close to that Knox Street property, is it not? You know exactly, yeah, so I think it's more of what would need to be done, correct me if I'm wrong, on-site, and the cost of what it would take on-site to put the utilities in. I know when Habitat and some of the other folks were looking, you know, the cost of running that on the property itself, depending on how many units you put in there, obviously, can be rather expensive. And I don't know if that's included in the looping project, which I think was your,
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay.
Is that going to be included in that project? Because,
That was not an application.
okay,
That area. What we're doing, I think, let's not discuss a new line for that area.
Mm.
The living project, specifically replacing the old fence line, can't carry that flow and it's bottlenecking.
but I thought that was the problem there. The fact the line was too small.
Chief, you need a mic? Yeah.
But no houses in one part of the L, of course, it's right across from the project, and the houses on the other border. It's like if you could think of two L's. One L this way, of course, they have, because it's houses all along there, but, Yes. So we're not looking at any improvement for that.
Yeah, I think. You said new line? I think they have.
But that was not part of the application.
Okay.
But
How much would it cost to put that line there? And I know that now, it's been a long time, and I know that basically, you know, I can hear all the arguments against it. But it just seems like that part of our town has been abandoned.
Oh, I feel like, I mean, yeah, and then I think, Emily was what, 78,000 something there, so probably some, ballpark 100, 150. We haven't got estimates on it yet.
Could we make sure that because it seems to me like that's just a section of our town that's been abandoned because of the fact that, can't build on it because it prevents any development of that area, am I correct?
Yeah, I don't think it
But the water,
I thought we got them from the way the property is. Houses in there, or you know, you have to turn the state because it's not enough room to say the property for the housing authority. I understand that.
well, I was told that it couldn't be developed because of the water line that was there.
I don't think
That
that's
was-
the case.
That's my question. Okay. I'm glad to hear of the, progress on the Nobel Canal, because that's one of those projects that's been up there just as long as the multi-purpose building, I think.
That's probably longer.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's been there forever. It seems like, we discussed about the pipes being put down that were too small and all those kinds of things, and,
There are a lot of challenges to that
Yeah.
project, but we've worked through a lot of them,
yeah, and
so.
that Tyson Street area has been torn up at least 2 or 3 times during my lifetime that I can remember. Well, also, we were talking about preparing for expansions, preparing for growth. Stephen, I'm not mistaken, we charge developers fees to cover some of the expansion or modifications that have to be done to areas before they, build on them, am I correct? Okay. And I remember when I first came on the board, we were charging them recreation fees. But,
They still do.
Still do.
but I noticed that now a lot of them are choosing to, designate land for recreation in their area.
Well, again, that's been an ongoing conversation because sometimes they just want to offload the worst piece of land they've got and meet the,
Yeah.
state law, thank you, regarding that. So I think, if I recall correctly, we don't have to accept just anything that's given to us. So we just need to keep that in mind as these projects come about. Staff does a really good job, though, of identifying, and looking at what's being proposed.
And we keep in mind the fact of that thing of those enterprise funds. And
Yes.
trying to make sure that our costs cover the costs of the, of the thing that we're providing to our citizens. We want to provide, everybody wants everything. We would like to provide all the services, and we want to keep them at the levels that we're doing now, if possible. But if it's not possible, and we have to modify them to keep the costs down, we would like for our citizens to keep that in mind. Thank you.
May I say something to that point?
Yes.
Ms. Councilwoman Robinson, that reminded me of a couple of conversations, and this is very, I'll be honest, I was shocked, but I've had a couple of residents say, I would be willing to pay increased fees. Some who are very vocal about adding back some services say, I'd be willing to pay more fees. So we'll keep that in mind when it comes to budget time.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. For us as the council, we need to keep that in mind as well. I mean, we're talking about a lot of different things, but also we need to understand there's gonna have to be some rate increases. We're gonna need to look at that. And also too, we need to also look at maybe a bond referendum. I don't know if anybody know what a bond referendum is, but
I do.
you know, we need to.
Anthony does.
We need to kind of look at that as well, because we have some expensive projects. And, you know, I said, let's look at a bond referendum and let the citizens determine what they want to do. I mean, you know, we keep saying what the citizens want, but if we put a bond referendum out there, either the citizens either going to vote it up or vote it down. But doesn't mean that we can't still go ahead on with it. But I'd rather put it in play that let the citizens decide what they want to do. Yeah.
I think we've briefly had, just when we get back to the multipurpose facility, we haven't had a bond issue since I've been here. I don't know, Anthony, if you remember the last time. Okay, so a general obligation bond where you pledge the taxing authority of the jurisdiction, there's not been one around here for a really long time. And the good part about that, we usually lease purchase everything, which is excellent. We're so glad when LGC allowed us to start doing that. A bond process is long and can be expensive, but it gives your folks a chance to go to the polls and vote on the project. So sometimes when you're talking about a specialized project such as this, and when you're really not sure where the public stands, that's a good opportunity to find out. You hopefully try to get it on a ballot when there's going to be a busy election season, you know, so you really get the bulk of the folks in town voting, you hope. Now the challenge is if it gets voted down, doesn't mean you can't still do it, but then you've got the optics of what it looks like to proceed with the project that the town has voted down. I like to be optimistic and say that if you do your educational campaign well enough and full endeavor, but I do think that when we get into the start of the weeds on this project, that the type of method that we utilize to move forward, I do think council should consider potentially having a GO bond vote on this thing. Anthony, I don't know if you feel differently, jump in.
Certainly think about one of the, just kind of full disclosure, general obligation bond, a little bit different than what we typically use.
I meant installment purchase.
So
I'm going old school.
Well, my point there is typically it's a little more involved in that you have to get bond counsel and get a bond rating.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some probably different hurdles associated with going through and getting small obligation bond versus installment purchase. I think probably get longer time.
Right.
So there's some pros and cons of both bond counsel.
Yeah.
Investment.
And I think Anthony's right. I mean, we should look at all the options.
Right.
But it's certainly an option that might make sense at a more specific type project such as this, when you're talking about a community utilized project that's open to the public, et cetera. It's an option to talk about.
So I just want to say, we purchased the land for the community center that have been spoken about for over 21 years, right? So we have purchased the land for it, right? And right here, in addition to a comprehensive plan, was supposedly have had community input. And I questioned the community input at a watermelon festival, because how would that target residents, right? And so now we're talking about doing things to get the project, after having McGill and Associates and everybody else looking at this for God knows how long. We are bringing up a conversation, which is an option of a bond. What does that say to the community? And when we speak and I say the community needs, and there's a difference between a want and a need. In a growing community, a multi-purpose, however we want to call it, is a need. And so even if we have a bond and the pulse of the community would say, you know, whatever they would say, what have all of this been done for, right? We should collectively be moving forward. We can't be flip-floppy with regards to what is needed and what has been spoken about for over 20 years, and land has been purchased, and this seems to not be stable to me. And I'll go back into when we're talking about general funding and fund balances, we're talking about safeguarding people, human beings. When we're talking about we don't want to use up the money, of course we have a cushion. We're talking about safeguarding lives. We're talking about community center and a plan that has been in place. And it seems to me, if I was not in this building at this moment, and I was just a person at home anticipating, I would say, what in the world is going on? Do they want a community center, multi-purpose center? Do they not want it? And it comes from right here, the governing bodies, and being on the same page. And what is a want and what is a need?
Well, I can answer that. You're right, but also too, as a council, we got to still understand that we got to look at the pulse of the community. And with that being said, we got to think also creative ways. There's money out here through public-private partnerships. Yeah, we own the land, but there's other ways. There's several different ways we can look at this thing. The bond is one, public-private partnership is another. So you can't, again, Councilwoman Hawkins, there's a lot of different ways we can get this thing done. Doesn't necessarily mean, when I said that looking at a bond, that, you know, I don't want it done. I want it done, but still, we're putting out everything out there so that they can see what we're doing. And that's the whole point I was trying to get across. Not that we don't want it or that we don't need it, you know, but if we put everything out there so that the public knows where we're going.
And wouldn't that be included in a charrette or in a public forum or hearing? Thank you.
Well,
That
and
was
just,
getting me confused.
if I could just be clear on that, you don't normally, a bond is really having to do more about the financing of the project,
Sure.
not and that includes a vote of the people.
Sure.
But that's them voting on whether they want their theoretical taxes pledged to pay for in our jobs, or to bring forward any and all of the ways that we could pay for this project. And that is that is one of the possibilities. Doesn't have anything to do with us talking about a need versus a want. It's having to do with how do we pay for it.
And thank you for reiterating or saying what I stated. Again, it's going back to what the citizens need versus what is a want. And when citizens go to a poll on a bond, they are considering those factors. Is this something that I want to invest in for something that is needed, or that is something that is lightly needed? And that is why I said that.
I don't.
Could we, those of us who, we've had these, this information packet on, the multi-purpose building. Could we share these with each other, our comments and stuff? And with the recreation director, like, send an email our suggestions or whatever?
You certainly could do that, and we're happy to take them. And then we can certainly talk about them when we get together in our workshop.
Our suggestions, I'm looking at, what another one of the council members may see as something that is needed in the building, or something like that, that we could share those.
And I think also, there's some information that we can send out to supplement what you all have that, as you share your comments with each other, might be helpful.
I mean, are there other members of the council?
I do have a question, Terry. A few years ago, and Mayor Hines, a few years ago, we did share what we wanted to see in the building, correct? Correct?
I think so.
Okay. Do you still have that information from, I think it was maybe like 2 years ago, we did share what we wanted to see in the, like, we did one stage, we wanted gymnasium.
Right.
Right, we did
I
that.
will go back and
Okay.
take a look.
Thank you.
Be glad to.
Johnny, Councilmember Webb, sorry.
I'm Johnny. That's okay. No, I just wanted to address my neighbor. And one's is still interested in having service provided again to have our trash pickup back to normalcy before we change it every other week. I was listening to what Councilman Smith was saying. They are aware. In order for us to have something like that redone again, we're talking about a rate increase.
A fairly substantial
And
one. A fairly substantial one.
yes, and even I would say that I asked, let's do a petition. Do a petition and see how many is willing to pay an increase. And the question was back to me was a petition wasn't done when we changed it. And that is true. I couldn't argue with that. So, but still, in order to get enough input from our community, I think that it'd be something that we would consider or find another way or means to get some feedback on whether or not they want to have the increase and to have that service provided to them again.
Talking about a survey?
I don't know how. I recommended to the one that I was talking to, do a petition.
Right.
But the response that I received was a petition wasn't done when it was taken away. And I would say, you're right.
That's a true
That
statement.
is a true statement. I mean, you can't argue with that.
But what I would say is, as we conduct business, and you all have been elected to assist in
Yes.
conducting that business, it would be inherently difficult to assess needs by the means you're talking about for every decision we make, or for everything that we bring to you for a decision.
Especially to the budget process.
Right.
When you think about that process, and we're sitting here and having to weigh a 1.9 million deficit and this and that, it would be very difficult to say, let's petition or survey everybody on this and that. We have to make decisions, that's what we're elected to do.
Really.
But if council would like, if that's what you're asking us to do, and council wants us to do that, we'll certainly do that.
I think that as we're talking about options, right? That can be an option as well. We want to talk about all of these different things. At the crux of the matter, while we are elected to speak on behalf of the people, that is our role, they still too also have a voice. This can be in a petition, or a public hearing or a town hall, because ultimately, the people have the voice in what is going on. And we cannot assume what they want or assume what we want to do. We need to hear them via the petition, via their voice in a public hearing. So this is why I've been continuously asking, what are we doing and when are we doing it? Not talking, but getting something in action. And this is great conversation, but we need to just plug in what we're gonna do and when, so that we can get rolling.
And we do have a public hearing
Right.
for our budget before we go to the approval process, and that is part of the process each year.
Right. Right. And great conversations tonight. Appreciate everybody's input. I think we did a great job. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I do need to circle back and address one issue. Councilman Butler, earlier, you had asked about notification of the rate increase. When I replied to that, I believe I spoke about when I did it too. That first thing, effective, but it would take the whole year. So I just kind of wanted to make sure, in order to get that payment paid, we need to start a lot of that with the rate. If we were going to send something out to the citizens,
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Again, thank you, everybody. Like I said, it was a great conversation tonight. Thank the staff for putting together this budget outlook. You know, I think it gives us something to move forward with. It's been a long day for us all. So with that being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I'm not finished. So the first planning meeting, we spent time speaking about attributes for the chief. What is the next steps? Do we have, because you were going to get a plan and run down what we talked about. What are the next steps? We also spent time talking about volunteer boards and suggestions. When will this be revisited so that I can go ahead and speak to that as well in terms of statute and in terms of objections? I would like to know when that will be revisited and when we will have a comprehensive plan, steps forward as council in the process of getting a new chief in place.
Okay, so I did ask for the attributes, and those will certainly be incorporated in the job ad. Angie and I will post the job ad for 30 days. Then we will go through the application packets that we receive. What we would usually do is follow up with some supplemental questions to elicit some additional information. And then Angie and I will put together an assessment process, which usually is comprised of assessors from outside the organization. That can be made of other human resource professionals, other chiefs of police, and sometimes managers. Depends on exactly the assessors we're looking for, to help go through probably what would be a 3 or 4 staged process. And each candidate would go through those processes, and then collectively all assessors would get together to come up with scores for performance in each of the process. It's a tried and true method I've used many, many times. And then ultimately a recommendation would be made from the assessment panel to me, and then I would go through and consider top candidates for the position and then move forward from there.
Can I ask, if the council will have any say in this process.
No, ma'am.
The council will not have any say in the process. I recall a conversation where I was told that the council will be included in the process.
I'm not sure who that conversation was with.
It was a conversation with you and I when I had a meeting with you on December 23rd.
That is not anything that I've ever done before.
That's what you said. You've never done it before, but this is something that you were looking to do, and that is why I'm asking it.
I don't recall saying it to that effect, but I certainly won't dispute it here. I did and will take input from council on the attributes you'd like to see, because I would really like to incorporate those. Obviously, I think most of what's been stated is what Angie would look forward in a chief anyway. So what came forward really shows me that I think we're all thinking in like regarding that. I'm trying to think of the best way I want to say it. I haven't done it. And I will certainly take your words into consideration.
Thank you. And then my next part, the extended conversation about volunteer boards and when is that going to be revisited so that that can be properly addressed?
I may not be the proper person to ask. If you're talking about changes being, let me finish, if you don't mind, changes being made to the boards as they exist, additions, deletions, whatnot, that's probably a conversation amongst you all as council.
That was brought to the planning meeting.
Yes.
And so that is
Yes.
why I'm asking about it.
I wanted to make sure, and Don helped me, that you all had an overview of what each board, the purpose, et cetera, so that you all could talk about those things. I know several things have been discussed. Staff, Don and myself are happy to assist with that, but that was really more for council purposes. And if you all, as we look through these ordinance changes and code changes, procedural changes, if there are things we need to address, we stand by for direction.
Yeah, those are something that we'll be discussing during our planning session, board planning session, the dates that we bring forward.
Okay, please let me know, because per statute, a lot of what was discussed is not per statute or current bylaws. So thank you, and I want to be sure that when we have meetings, that the public is made aware on what would be the conclusive. So thank you, Mayor, for sharing that. That will be brought back up during the planning meeting. Thank you.
Okay. What planning meeting?
When we have our planning, the work session.
Work session.
Yeah, work session. Whatever date we decide, the work session. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Gotcha.
Is it anyone else before we ask for an adjournment? Anyone else? If not,
Can I make a motion
yes, sir.
to close the session?
Yes, sir.
Second.
All right. Have a motion on the floor, a motion made by Councilman Moore, second by Councilwoman Robinson. Any discussion? If none, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Adjourned.
I am gonna run to the ladies' room before I go out in the cold. Can I take your cup with me? I gotta take mine and throw it away.
Wouldn't this in every, that's what I was saying. I understand, but.
Workshop with ordinances in there. Yep. That's
That's what.
all right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I just
I mean,
wanted to make
'cause
sure.
If we're gonna be there, we need to
Gary.
Agreed, agreed.
Ain't no need to-